So, fall-proofing masterclass. The second recovery masterclass of a series of 3 that I'm making now for people after a stroke. This is important for anyone with a brain injury. Your sense of balance, your balance will change after a severe brain injury. It's like one of the first things that changes. It is affected, can be your awareness of your environment, dizziness, it can be disorientation, it can be that you injure yourself more easily by falling or having inefficient movements, often without noticing. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Lowering falls after stroke is hugely important and often is not done in the right way. Just doing balance exercise is learning you to compensate better. When it really matters, you will go. And I will show you why in this system and how we can do things to really prevent you falling. So falls aren't about strength. It is it's about prediction. So building up strength is not going to prevent you from falling. So if you had a stroke or severe brain injury, so the fear that may have crept into your life so gradually you barely noticed it arrive. A lot of our clients are terrified of moving because their balance has changed, their sense of where they are in space. The fear of falling is huge. It shows up as a hand reaching for the furniture, steadying yourself or grasping onto someone else. It shows up like that, and as planning your day around where the handrails are, looking into space where you can hold on to, or whether that's the cane or the tripod or the quad walker or the stroller, and as quietly saying no to the things you were used to do without thinking. So that is how it shows up. And the advice you have been giving is almost always the same 2 words. Be careful. Please don't do that. You may fall. Your partner, caretaker, who's listening right now, is one of the biggest fears for them as well. So over the next good half hour, I'm going to tell you something that will sound wrong at first, contradictory to what you may have thought or believed. Even for professionals, and I'm going to ask you to hear me out. Just a word, a side note, we publish on this, so we know what we are talking about, so please hear me out. So, and the reason is it's the whole key. So be careful actually has been making you less safe, not more, less safe. You heard me well. I'm going to explain why. And the way out is opposite of everything you have been taught. My name's Dr. Arjan Kuipers. I'm a neuroscientist, a clinician, and a post-stroke program developer. Let's start. So let me give you the whole argument in a single line so you know where we're going, and even before you understand that I know what I'm talking about. Safety isn't found in the middle. It's actually learned at the edges of where things can go wrong. Now, I'm not going to put you at danger, so rest easy. I'm not the opposite. Yeah, so hear me out. So it's not staying in this small middle picture, not trying or daring to do anything. Everything I show you today comes back to that. So the way you become genuinely steadier and the way you stop falling is not by shrinking into this tiny safe middle and never going near its limits, either because someone says so to you or you feel it yourself. It's by visiting your edges deliberately and in a safe way, under control, in a controlled way, and have a planned way back to the middle. Now, if that sounds backwards, and almost sounds reckless. I understand you, but I have you covered here. So by the end of this session, it will make complete sense, and you'll understand why it's the only thing that actually works. So before I ask you to do anything counterintuitive, I want to honor how reasonable your caution has been. Falls are one of the most common and most consequential things that happen after a stroke. A large share of survivors fall in the first year, and many of them more than once, unfortunately, and it comes with a huge cost. Being careful always was a sane response to real danger. There is a real danger, and we have had clients that had really horrible falls with huge consequences, sometimes even life. And this is why I'm so passionate about this. And I have this as the second masterclass because this is important for all of you. But there is a distinction that changes everything. The fall is an event. The fear is a condition. It's a state, and it's the condition that does the long-term damage. By having the fear, you start limiting yourself even more, and by limiting yourself more, you never learn where the edges are, and when you come to the edge, you get into the real danger, you fall. So that is a loop that has been ongoing. You have a fall, or even just a frightening near miss, which I think a lot of you had. Quite naturally, you become afraid. So you move less, you stiffen up, you withdraw from the situations that scared you. But moving less and stiffening up actually erodes the very thing your balance depends on. Your strength, your mobility, your reactivity, and crucially the sensory information that your brain needs to keep you upright, to know where you are in space. The more you limit yourself to the middle, the less your brain becomes aware of where you are in space. And when it's out there in a situation where it moves from the middle to the edge, you cannot react. And it erodes the way you react, and it erodes your capacity to react. So your balance actually gets worse over time, which makes the next wobble more likely, and which deepens the fear. The fear spiral does more damage over months and years than the fall ever did in that moment. So it's the actual fear that comes with it that is actually holding you back from getting better and actually not falling anymore or having less of a chance of falling. And this course treats both, but especially the downward spiral. So what has actually gone wrong? It is not primarily that your legs are too weak or that you, because of muscle tone, spasticity, that you can't react anymore. The real problem is the mapping that your brain has of where your body is in space. So your brain holds an internal map of where your limits of stability are. Where is the border? Everyone, when you're healthy, you can lean into all sides, and you can lean quite a long way, and then you make a step to correct yourself. That's the limit of stability. But this has greatly changed after anything that happens to the brain. So picture your true base of support as a wide territory you can move within. You can go in all directions. It's safe. You know, if you reach the edge and you have to correct, you can correct and move back without ever falling. After a stroke, that internal map, that limit of stability, that wide circle around you actually shrinks and often shifts backwards, sideways, or forwards. So if you move in that direction, you don't have that capacity to lean all the way. You immediately are on the edge. Literally, you feel like you're on the edge of, and that is part of the fear that you feel. So this is the crucial part, cruel part even. Your brain's And I'll just quickly have to go to the... Yeah, we go back. So your internal map has changed. So the picture of where you can move has shrunk, and your brain's alarm now fires long before you reach the real edge. So the real edge is further away, but you think it is here instead of here. And you cannot react. You freeze when you come here, and that often shifts to one side more than the other. Your brain screams danger when you're nowhere near falling. Now, three things follow. The map of your limits contracts, so you cannot move all the way to the edge anymore. And your center of pressure becomes very conservative. So the limits of where you feel safe to move becomes very contracted. You live cramped in the middle of a territory that's actually much, much larger. And because you never visit your edges anymore, the picture, you lose the recovery strategies, but the picture actually shrinks even more. The automatic catches your body should make when balance is generally lost. Now, that's the mechanism. It's not your legs, it's not your capacity because you're contracted that you can deal with it. Your actual picture of where you are in space has changed. And with it, your capacity to react when you reach where you think your limits are has also changed, and you start doing the wrong things. A shrunken map, and you start to miss the catch. You cannot catch yourself anymore. Now, I can tell you why be careful, which is said so often. The advice everyone gives you with love and good intentions has actually been quietly working against you. Be careful means stay in the middle. Don't go near your edges. Keep to the safe center. And it sounds like the obvious right thing to say, but it isn't. Remember the mechanism that I just told you. The map shrinks precisely because you never visit your edges anymore. The brain only keeps an accurate map of the territory it actually experiences. So when you spend all your time crammed in that tiny, safe middle, holding on to something, you give your brain no information about where the real edges are. And so the map shrinks even further, which makes you feel less safe, which makes you stay even more to the middle and limit your recovery possibilities. Be careful that it doesn't break that loop. It feeds it. So avoiding your edges is the single most reliable way to keep them lost. It's a perpetuating loop that you caught yourself in. And that's not a criticism because you were not aware of it. You were doing exactly what you were told, and it's a criticism of the advice, which is very general, both for caretakers, both for professionals, because most of them are not aware of what's really behind the fear of falling. So here's the part that will sound wrong to you. And again, I'm not out there to put you in any danger, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I know, I know that we are not going to keep you in the middle because I want to help you expand your possibilities, expand you catching yourself, expand having less fear. We're going to take you gently with support, with a planned way back every single time towards your edges. That is the real way to deal with fear of falling on purpose. To the front, to the back, towards the affected side, especially because that controlled trip to the boundary out from the safe middle is the only thing that reteaches your brain where the real edge is. You can teach balance, you can do balance exercises, but that fear of moving towards the limit of stability where your brain thinks it is still there. You just learn to compensate and react a little bit quicker. It doesn't expand the edges of where you think your limit of stability is. We have to reteach that. So once your brain has an accurate map again, two really nice things happened on their own. So first, your usable balance expands. Your capacity to react to a perturbation expands. The brain stops cramping you inside that tiny little, the mid part, that cramping into the middle, not expanding your edges. The brain allows you to expand that automatically. So it now trusts a wider territory to move in. So you don't cramp up, you don't do the wrong things. So the steady ground you can actually start to use gets bigger. And second, this is the one that ends the falls. Real wobbles stop becoming false. So when you, for whatever reason, go over the perceived edge limit of stability, you actually can catch yourself. So visiting the edge under control teaches your brain to catch you near the boundary. So that is where, when a genuine stumble or perturbation happens, you can start catching yourself again, and your brain allows you to do so. And I know, very contradictory to what you're made to believe. So expanding the map is half of it. The other half is the catches. So the recovery strategies that your body should fire automatically when balance is truly lost. And after a stroke, these often go quiet because you've stopped going anywhere near the situations that would trigger them. So it's the opposite again. Staying safe means that you are not capable of catching yourself anymore. There are actually three, and they escalate. So we have like ankle strategies, we have for the small corrections, we have swaying you back over your base, we have hip strategies, they are bigger, they are faster, and bends when there's more of a perturbation, of a disturbance, and the step strategy that we often use when we really go towards the edge, the old edge when you didn't have your stroke. We just correct by a simple step to catch yourself. The last one matters more than anything else I can teach you. So hear it clearly. Reactive stepping, the trained ability to take a quick, well-placed step when you're losing balance by deliberately going into the direction where your map has shrunk, is the single most evidence-based fall prevention intervention that exists. Yet it's not applied most of the time. That's why I do this masterclass. Not a stronger leg, not doing general balance exercises, not doing general balance exercises. As faster, smarter catch, expanding the picture in your brain is the real answer. So let me show you what beginning to map the edge actually looks like. So I will walk you through what a first supported trip to the edge actually looks like. And again, we do it safe. Yeah, I don't want anything to happen. I'll demonstrate, and I want to be completely clear, this is done with support, under control, and you build to it properly. So please don't push into this alone if you're unsteady. Make sure that there's support, there's someone to help you. First, we need an anchor. So I'm standing at a sturdy counter, like the kitchen top, and or a table, both hands resting on it. And this is my planned way back, and it stays within reach the whole time. We never leave it. So that's where you start. Second, shift. Don't lean. Just slowly transfer your weight toward one edge. Can be the left, can be forward, can be backwards. All the time having support with one hand or two hands. Safest if you go to the kitchen and you have like a kitchen angle where you have things on both sides. So I'll just go back. Yeah. And let's go and go back to the kitchen counter. Let's see. Something went wrong here. So again, we are at an edge. So we can put our back towards one and the hands on the other. So it's always safe. And then we shift. We are not leaning in. We are not putting all our weights in. So we can go backwards, forwards, to the side, and only as far as the breathing allows you to. So stop when you feel that your breathing starts to not, you stop breathing because you have all your attention to, and you start getting a fear reaction. So all the time we have a tall posture. We don't drop or slouch because that will actually decrease your chance of correcting yourself. But the moment you feel that you are not breathing properly, or you start to cramp up or you stiffen up, that is the early warning gate. And you stop shifting into one of the sides. So, and the fear, it always shows up in your posture stiffening up or your breathing catching. So those are the instruments that you can start using. Like you can use breathing to settle yourself down, to lower the energy expenditure, the stop of breathing, that you catch your breath or stiffen up in your body, is the first sign. Okay, now we ease off. And in time, you will see that what you can do without that happening expands and expands. So thirdly, you touch the edge and return. And so you can reach over to one side and touch a little bit further than just leaning in, or just leaning a little bit over. So you can try to reach out a little bit more. And maybe you feel in some of the directions, whether that's to the side, to the front, or to the back, that it feels less safe. Yeah. So that is, you make a mental note of it, because that is where you have reached that internal map, that limit of stability. So then you pause for one breath, and then you come back to the center under full control. So when I feel I'm, for example, reaching over to the side, ooh, that doesn't feel good for me. I'm really tensing up. Just ease off a little bit, take a breath in and out, lower your alertness, and then again after that. So that is the whole repetition. So I visited the edge. That can be anywhere. Usually it's into the side of weakness. Yeah, if you had a right stroke on the left side, usually it's a little bit more back or to the side. And then if you do that, we visited the edge where you feel, oh, this is unsafe. We're actually expanding the map in our brain little by little. So a little bit more territory is marked as safe. because we ease off, and the brain, okay, this is still okay, I didn't actually fall. So fourth, we widen the reach over time, session by session, always supported, and that reachable territory grows, including deliberately toward the affected site that the brain most wants to neglect, which is usually opposite of where the stroke happened. Or if it's a cerebellar stroke, brainstem stroke, it can be on the same side. And slowly the middle stops to be a case where you're caught in the middle and the edges have become a danger zone. So that is the edge mapping. This is crucial to expand your map and your ability. And I mentioned the strategies, the ankle, the hip, the step, and that is how we can build safety again. And it's very opposite of to what you have thought so far, and that's why it has not shifted so far. You stayed in that middle, and actually things got worse over time. And those balance exercises that you have been doing, the generic balance exercise is never remapping your brain, never relearning you properly how to react to when you have to catch yourself. Now, balance runs on three senses, not just one. So there's one more piece of the mechanism. And again, when we know the mechanism, we can retrain. We can do something about it. That's what I want to teach you in this masterclass. And the mechanism explains some of the most specific fears that you have. So your balance doesn't run on one sense, it runs on three, blended together. So your vision, your balance system, your inner ear, which is a lot bigger than your inner ear actually, the vestibular system, and your body's own position sense, your proprioception. All those systems, and also smell, hearing, they all play a role in this. And a healthy brain mixes all those three major systems and leans on which is most reliant in the moment that you're in. And after a stroke, many survivors quietly become too dependent, almost entirely on vision. The eyes take over, and starts to fix you in place with your eyes, because the other two channels feel unreliable because of spasticity, because of weakness, because of the internal map that changes. And that's exactly why certain situations feel so threatening. Dim light situations, a dark hallway at night, a busy, visually cluttered room, closing your eyes to wash your hair in the shower. And all of those, you lost your dominant sense. And you're not training, you have not been trained back up to rely on the other senses. And the work here is really sensory reweighing. What does that mean? Is that we gently, safely retrain your brain to share the load across all of the three senses again, so you have a big margin and not being over-reliant, for example, on vision, which brings you into big trouble when vision is reduced because of dim light conditions, closing your eyes, etc. So, and when you can rely on all three senses again, and again, that can be trained, you don't have to overtrust your eyes, and when it does, your steadiness returns precisely the conditions that have been frightening you the most. So that's another key thing in retraining this fall risk. The dark hallway stops being a threat, or when there's like uneven grounds, it stops being a threat or lesser of a threat. Now, and here is something that may surprise you. Almost no one falls when they're standing still. If you think back about your own wobbles and near misses, I'm sure that very few happened while you were just standing. So standing is not the problem. Falls happen in three kinds of moments. First, transitions, standing up, sitting down, getting out of bed. The moments when your center of mass is actually traveling from one side to another. And second, turning and reaching, the very thing that we just trained you a little bit in. Pivoting to face a different direction. Yeah, so just something catches your attention, something happens behind you, falls, and you suddenly turn, especially when it's into the side where your stroke has the most effect. And it's going beyond the base of your support and your mapping. And that's where the old shrunken map fails most often. And third, doing two things at the same time, multitasking, walking when you're talking, carrying something while you are moving. So that cognitive motor load, that extra load, the same one we discussed in the fatigue work, is often the final straw that tips you over. Now, the wrong response is to that list is that you start avoiding all those things. And to stop turning, to stop reaching, to stop doing two things, because that is what you feel you should be doing. And that's the fear spiral again. It's the right response is to take your expanded map and your recovery strategies and your reweighted senses and to practice them. Practice them, practice them, practice them. And that is exactly, that's what we do with our clients. We retrain them in those moving situations, broken down and under control. And that is, you train the moment the fall actually happens, and then you start preventing it. So it stops happening. It's not removing that situation, it's actually doing that situation in a very controlled way, knowing what your strategies are, knowing what your senses should tell you, etc., and with an extended map. So let's take a step back like we did with the fatigue and see what we have been building here. I've been building awareness. We took a problem that everyone, including probably you, assumed was about you being weaker, you having spasticity, you having like a changed balance sensation. And start being very careful. And we replaced it with something more true. It's your awareness map. You shifted that, often it's shrunk the most in the direction where the stroke gives the least attention. You were missing the catches, you were not capable of doing the catch anymore, and an over-reliance on your visual system. And every piece has an answer. We expand the map by visiting the edges under control. We restore the three recovery mechanisms, ankle, hip, step. And we reweigh the senses so you're steady in the dark and in crowds. And when you are we rehearse the specific moving moments when the real falls happen in a controlled way. And we make the floor itself safe by knowing how to get up. So if we learn everyone how they can get up from the floor, just like a child learns to get up from the floor before it starts walking, literally. And that's not a weaker body that has been made careful. That's a truer map, knowing what to do, make it usable again. And that is the whole approach, and it makes all of the difference. And I talk from experience. I talk about the 1,600 plus people that we have helped so far, expanding their map, their strategies, their sensory input to make them a lot safer. So where do we go from here? Well, today you saw once what mapping the edge looks like, but a single shift, a single practice session isn't reclaiming your life. The real change comes from turning it into a durable, repeatable system that becomes automated. Your edge work, your three recovery strategies, your sensory drills, your moving situations rehearsed, and you know how to get up again. And all of that has to be built around you specifically, your true direction, your fall map, your stability map is different than the other stroke survivors' stability map. So your true directional limits, knowing where you have the blind spot in your map, the particular situation that gets you out, the sense you've come to overtrust, whether that's the ears, whether that's your vision, whether that's the sensation of your, when you have become blind on one side after your stroke, it might be that your balance system is actually the one that you rely on the most. And your own fear profile. When does being fearful of being on the edge become a problem for you? So the next step, if you like, is the short assessment that maps that stability signature and shows you where to begin. That's how we go about it. So first, now you are aware of what factors play. Then we start mapping your stability map. And as before, let me be clear about what it is. It's like we are here in a conversation. We are exploring new concepts and ones that are maybe truer to your situation. It's not a commitment. So it's a way of seeing your own pattern clearly enough to train it precisely. And if that's something you value, I have put a link below where you can begin, or in the email that we send you, you will find a link how you can start this process, finding your stability mapping and the whole system to retrain the fear of falling, fall-proofing you. So, and then that concludes this masterclass. I want you to leave with the following. You are never just fragile, and that's why you shrunk your map and your caution, about and the fear of falling. That was not foolish, that was protective. But you have been living inside a map that quietly grew smaller and smaller, most likely, and then doing the sensible thing of staying within it because, you were not aware of what's happening. So anyone would have done that. So that is, that is how things go. But the map can be redrawn, and not by being more careful, as you understand now. It's actually by going gently and with control to your edges until your brain remembers how much territory is really yours, what is still safe. Safety was never in the middle. You find it at the edges. And you want to get your territory back, and you can, knowing all of this. So take care of yourself and your loved ones, and I'll see you in the next very interesting session.